There was an idea to bring together a group of remarkable people. So when we needed them, they could fight the battles.
That's from the trailer for The Avengers. Comic book characters have been brought to life and filled movie screens for decades. In recent years, they've been some of the biggest blockbusters in the industry. Moviegoers flocking to theaters to see The Avengers, The Amazing Spider-Man, Iron Man, just to name a few. No doubt the next Batman film, The Dark Knight Rises, will be a huge success. Joining me to talk about all the comic book characters on the big screen, Mike Russell, a movie reviewer for The Oregonian. Mike, why's there been such a superhero boom?
Well, first of all, they're making really good superhero movies right now. I'm hearing great things about The Dark Knight Rises, and The Avengers has already cracked the top 10 of all-time moneymakers ever. And it's fantastic. You know, it's a great piece of pop filmmaking. I think the reason that superhero movies, resonate so much is because superheroes just as a whole just lend themselves to sort of the big budget epic storytelling, And then, there's also, they got all the stuff that you need. They're awesome vigilante stories, they're power fantasies, they're heroes' journey quests, and all that stuff is great.
Can this possibly last? Are we going to see this for years to come?
If they keep making movies like The Avengers and The Dark Knight, yes. The weird thing about it is I think the reason they're making so many of these right now is also reflective of a trend I don't like at the Hollywood Cineplex, which is that their Hollywood right now is really brand-driven in the sense that if you look at what's going on in the Cineplex, it's all remakes, reboots, including The Amazing Spider-Man like a couple weeks ago, and then, stuff like based on like board games. So I think what's going on is superheroes are kind of the ultimate brands. Like Batman is like 73 years old. Spider-Man turns 50 this year. They have ridiculous name recognition. They're corporate-owned characters, and, they have this sort of prepackaged audience. So, as long as they tell great stories with them, that's fantastic. But the minute it starts getting all cynical and brand-driven, I think people will start staying away, kind of like they did with Green Lantern.
Let me ask you, Mike, about Dark Horse Comics, based in Milwaukee, of course. Mike Richardson, good friend of mine, founder of the company. Just had a couple medium-sized hits with Hellboy, of course, they did. And do you think that Dark Horse will get more into the movie game? They still have a lot of characters.
Yeah, Richardson's a good guy. He actually does a lot of sort of micro-budget filmmaking, too. Like, he did this movie with Bruce Campbell not too long ago called They Call Me Bruce, or My Name is Bruce. And, I hope so. I actually would love to see another Hellboy movie. I know he always had an idea for a trilogy. I hope it happens.
I grew up reading comic books, and there was the big rivalry, if you will, between DC Comics and Marvel. I was a Superman, Batman, Lois Lane, Legion of Superheroes kind of guy, so the Marvel stuff didn't quite interest me as much. But this has really been fascinating that both sides really have been well represented in the movie business.
Yeah. I would say Marvel better than DC right now. I mean, Marvel lends itself really, really well right now to movies, though, because one of the founding tenets of Stan Lee's Spider-Man is they always try to put a lot of flaws into their characters, and that makes for really interesting storytelling. It's why I think Tony Stark ended up being such an interesting movie character, even though I would probably argue he was a second-tier comics character.
What characters might we see on big screens in the future? Let me just put my vote in for Legion of Superheroes. Saturn Girl, Lightning Lass, Princess Projecta, Element Lad, Bouncing Boy. I mean, just visual all over the place.
Oh, man, you are hardcore, Scott. That's awesome. Actually, it's funny because Sean Levy has a interview in the Sunday Oregonian where he actually asked a bunch of local comics pros what stuff they'd like to see, and it's pretty interesting. They actually go about as nerd deep as you did, which is pretty awesome.
Thank you. Final question, do you think Batman will break records next week?
Yes, I do. I think it's going to be absolutely ridiculously enormous.
We have to leave it there. Mike Russell, movie reviewer for The Oregonian. Thanks for being with us here on KEX.
Thanks a lot.
Look at today's A&E, by the way. You'll see Mike has drawn a comic as the cover story. It's pretty good stuff.